Hi, I'm Austin Simpkins, and this is the Accelerated Financial Advisor, the show that uncovers how standout advisors serve clients better, market smarter, and grow faster. This is episode 5 of our Client Success and Growth series. The Accelerated Advisor is brought to you by Phantom Growth. Simply put, we act as a plug-and-play Chief Growth Officer for advisors, handling prospecting, pipeline, and positioning so that you stay focused while your business grows. If predictable AUM growth is something that you're looking for, schedule a free strategy session at phantomgrowth.com. That's FANTUM growth.com. Today I'm joined by Conor Jonasson, CFP and Senior Wealth Manager at Cresonia Wealth Advisors. He is also the founder of Jonasson Retirement Solutions and is focused on building a book of business with his ideal clients, including high achievers who are analytically minded and are seeking guidance as they near retirement. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here with us, Conor.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Austin.
I'm excited to feature your story and your unique background. And for those who haven't come across your work yet, give us a little quick version of how you became a financial advisor and what drew you to the space.
Yeah, for sure. So I went to school for hockey. I was lucky enough to go and play with some buddies that I played junior hockey with. But as far as school, I really didn't have an idea of what I wanted to get into, but finance was by far the most interesting classes for me. I liked psychology as well. And for whatever reason, by the time I was done with college, I knew this was the industry that I wanted to get into. I think I probably thought I knew way more than I did at that point in my life. A little bit of, Dunning-Kruger effect, if you're familiar with that term, but
Yeah,
quickly learned that there was way more to learn, and that's what kept me in the space. I don't think you can ever be too good of an advisor or know too much, so it's something to kind of always strive and get better at, and you get to help people. So that's what brought me there, and that's what's kept me here.
that's great. What do you feel like from that experience you've taken the most into your work?
I never wanted to just do something, just, to get a paycheck. I always wanted something that you could strive and, like I said, continuously get better at. And, it's one of those things when you first get into the industry, you think you know a lot. And the more you learn, you realize that you can never know enough. So that's what I think I would probably take away the most is just that it's a continuing evolution. And, if you can be better 6 months from now than you are today, you're doing a good job. And if that's what you're striving for, you can bring that to anything in life, but especially in financial planning and helping people.
Yeah. So help our listeners understand a little bit about what that looks like and the work that you put in to improve yourself as an advisor.
Yeah, so a little bit more on the background. As you mentioned, just kind of recently started my own firm, so Jonasson Retirement Solutions. I've worked for some great advisors in the past, for some great firms, learned a lot. There was always something was always kind of missing. I always knew that I wanted to build something on my own, and there was always, there's in our industry, I'd say there's kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think our industry is trending more towards the good, and kind of the bad and the ugly are getting fished out along the way. But if I can build something that reaches people kind of beyond my own capacity, and that's what the reason that I'm doing YouTube videos, to hopefully people watch that. Maybe they'll never have the opportunity to, or I'll never have the opportunity to talk with them, but they can take something on that and build their life on it, or build their educational base on it, especially in the financial world.
Yeah, educational content is, in my opinion, the best way to go with marketing because you're not coming at people as salesy. You're just saying, hey, I understand this. So I think that's a great play. Where did you learn that strategy, or had you implemented that at your prior firm before?
Yeah, I think it's probably taken pieces from prior experiences. That's what I found. The super salesy approach. Not only is that
Yeah.
just not my personality, but it's very off-putting to me. So I can't imagine it not being off-putting to others. Where if
Mm-hmm.
someone can teach me something and they're not expecting anything in return, and then it ends up being a good fit and we work together, that's how you find those dream clients, and that client base where you wake up every day and every single meeting on your calendar, you're so excited to talk to those people. Where if you're selling them something that, I can beat your last advisor in returns, or, something that isn't really provable and doesn't really bring them value, it might close the deal for you on, a certain client, and I maybe lose clients because I'm not willing to pitch my value as I'm a better stock picker than the your current guy, or whatever the case may be. And building trust through education is really, I think, the key to building those long-term relationships.
Yeah. I think our listeners too would be curious to know what type of content or education you're building, and also where they could find your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so YouTube, it's Jonasson Retirement Solutions. So just the company name out in full. And I started this, it was about 3 months ago, so about when I started Jonasson Retirement Solutions. So hoping, every video gets better and better and I can provide more value as I continue to do this. I know it's usually a long run to get to, some of the people out there that have tens of thousands of views and whatnot. But really the content is focused on just trying to package, concepts of finance that maybe people have heard of before, but they don't really know how it relates to them. And I'm never providing advice to the people I'm talking to, but it's giving them maybe the ability to go to their financial advisor and say, hey, I watched a video on a guy who talked about Roth conversions. Does that make sense for me? And, maybe that advisor is kind of deer in the headlights. I have no idea what that means. Maybe that's a good sign that that person is kind of ready to jump to a retirement specific focused advisor that can help with some of those concepts. Or maybe I talk about Social Security and they go to, when should I file for Social Security? And they just give them a blanket, like, do it at 62 because it's going to run out of money, or, whatever the case may be, and not personalize it to their specific plan. Well, they know that people are out there that are able to help them do that. So a lot of it is just providing people with the right tools to build a plan, or to find the right advisor to help them build a plan. For example, there's a ton of changes with the tax law, with the One Big Beautiful Bill that passed. I'm just doing kind of small clippets I just did on, the Trump savings account. If you're saving for a child, how does that compare with a 529 and a custodial? How does it change the student loan system? Now, I'm not a specialist on student loans by any means, but I can give you enough fuel to, hopefully go find the right answers of, should I make changes prior to this, deadline where the whole system has basically been overhauled. So I can probably go on and on, but yeah, just little snippets like that of information, easily digestible. Hopefully I'm not talking over anyone. So if you have no idea what an RMD is, I'm not saying, do a QCD and it'll lower your RMD, something where it's just going to go over people's head. Hopefully it's for people that understand, have a high level of knowledge, and people who have a lower level of knowledge can understand and gain something from it.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're touching on something here that a lot of, like we mentioned before, other advisors aren't doing. And when we talk in marketing about making people aware of these solutions that are out there, it sounds like you're really touching on the 97% of the pyramid. A lot of, in sales, we typically rely on the 3% at the top who are problem aware and they're ready to buy, or they're ready to engage with an expert. And so I think that's an incredible approach there, where you're educating them and you might be pointing out a solution that they didn't really think was possible, or that they needed an expert on. And so you're bringing a bigger piece of that triangle and that pie higher up to that 3% so that you can work with them. So yeah, I think that's really great, and also brings up a question I have for you. Like, what got you into focusing on the retirement space? Did you have experience prior to that, or just kind of came to be?
Yeah, so I had experience, when you first get into the industry, you're learning the different phases and how the different areas, someone who is 30 years old has a completely different, needs for planning than someone who's 60 years old and looking to retire next year. And the more that I learned about the different phases, I do have accumulation clients that are in that phase, and I think I can bring them a ton of value as well. But the most value I think an advisor can bring is in that retirement phase. And, having your funds invested and, a little difference in performance over, your accumulation phase, that is going to make a difference. It's not that that's not important. But by the time you're 55, 60, those next couple years, the performance of your account is not, it pales in comparison to, putting your account in place so that you can start withdrawing from your account and not selling stocks when they're down, and you're planning your income accordingly so that when you retire, that it doesn't matter what the stock market's doing. You have 5, 7, 10 years of income already planned out. Then you can go and enjoy your retirement instead of sitting and staring at the stock market. There's people that they retire and they're supposed to be out enjoying their lives. They don't have a plan in place, or they just have just an investment focused advisor that's talking to them about returns every quarter and nothing else. Well, then you think your entire livelihood is based on what the stock market's doing, and that's not a very enjoyable retirement, I wouldn't say. So putting that kind of ease of mind to people, and also planning for things that I can show them pretty easily. A tax plan is, you're going to save more in taxes than you're ever going to pay me as the financial advisor. I can't tell you that I'm going to outperform more than the next guy. That there's just no way to prove that. But so that's why I always say data driven retirement planning to help you have peace of mind in retirement is the kind of a long-winded way for me to say that the retirement space to me is where I find I can bring the most value and the most provable value, and I also think is the most important part of kind of your money life cycle. Is you can make a really big mistake early on in retirement and it really derails the rest of your life, where you can make a pretty big mistake when you're 25, 30 and you have some chance to kind of recover from it.
Not a ton of wiggle room there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Connor, you touched on a great point, like your overarching key problem that you solve. And just to reiterate what you said, ease of mind. And I'm curious, would you say that at the core of your work, is that the main problem that you solve for people, or what do you feel like you provide to these individuals?
Certainly, I would say the most rewarding conversation that I have with people is after we implement their retirement plan. And there's tug and pull on making sure that they understand why we're doing everything the way they're doing. They might need to kind of reset a little bit how they think about investments. Maybe they were someone who really liked to stock pick, and my philosophy is not to stock pick. It's low cost indexing. If that's something where maybe they're not quite on the same page, but then they eventually get there, then we have a conversation, everything's in place, and they say, I feel so much better. I can finally breathe. I'm not waking up and checking my phone for what this ticker is doing. I'm not reading the news, looking at headlines that really shouldn't affect and don't affect my life. I'm really happy, and just getting messages. Sometimes it comes in emails, sometimes it comes in conversation. After you get through, the tough part, getting that plan in place, getting on the same page, implementing that plan, just that sigh of relief that people feel is just super rewarding.
That's great. I feel like a lot of advisors, well, it's easy to focus on the numbers. I like that you had mentioned that at the core, that's what you do, is I feel that a lot of people are deep down looking for a solution, right? They want to see that they're going to be safe and protected, but at the end of the day, there's always that root underlying emotion. And so it sounds like you are very personalized with the people you work with, and touch on that North Star with them pretty frequently. Would you agree with that? Or do you feel that your personalized approach is highlighted in how you frame that with clients initially?
Yeah, yep, certainly. I think that probably the mistake that I made early on is I focused too much on the numbers and the planning. And really, that is very important. Don't get me wrong. You want to have someone who's a good technician, putting your plan in place, making sure they're, seeing every opportunity to have you pay the least amount in taxes, have the highest spending capacity. That is very important. But when you're talking to someone, and if that's your opening pitch to them, that does not resonate with them, because, you could probably find a lot of financial advisors that are going to be somewhere similar on the technical side. But if they aren't able to talk you off the cliff when the COVID 2020 market crash happened, or even, recent volatility in 2025, all of that planning doesn't matter if they don't trust you, and if they don't have peace of mind. If they're, you can put the best plan in place, but if they call you in March of 2020 and say, put all my money in cash right now, you have to, and, it is their money, it's ultimately their decision, and that's what you end up doing. That is so much more detrimental than making sure that, right away off the bat, you're talking to them about, I don't know, you should do a donor advised fund or whatever the case may be. Having to understand that person, understanding what they're fearful of. That's one of my favorite questions when I first meet someone and we're doing like a discovery. It's always kind of awkward and weird to ask, but it's like, what's your biggest fear or what keeps you up at night? And that question alone, the way that they answer it, that tells you so much about how you need to handle that planning with them. Because if their biggest fear is something that shouldn't affect their plan, but it obviously is affecting their mindset and how they might react in a certain situation, if you ignore that and let that fester, you're going to be in a tough situation when that fear kind of boils over, where you kind of need to understand that and build a plan that is going to avoid that in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. You're definitely standing out from the crowd in that area where you're differentiating yourself in that personalization. How do you feel like you're also differentiating yourself from other advisors out in the space and maybe even in the retirement space?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit yet to be seen. Just to being this early on, I can't say I found a magic formula and I have so many people looking to work with me. I don't even have time. I'm early on, so I think the success that I've had in the past has been building that trust and the technician side is one thing, but really caring about the person and understanding what they need. One, I need to give ex-colleague Jeremy Kyle a shout out because he put me onto the learning motivational interviewing concepts. But I think, any advisor out there, if you haven't heard of that, it was kind of a light bulb for me that helped me make conversations go a lot smoother. An example of that would be, say someone is telling you that they're kind of charitably minded. Well, you might think your advisor brain goes, okay, donor advised fund, okay, they could do QCDs in the future. Then on that same time when you're thinking about that, they told you, our kids are doing well, we don't have a big legacy for them, we want to give this amount of charity at the end, but our biggest fear is that we don't want to run out of money, so we're more focused on that, but we also don't want to leave a bunch of money. So we need someone that can, and that whole time you're thinking donor advised fund, QCD, and then you say, well, have you heard of a donor advised fund or a QCD? You completely missed all the important stuff of that conversation, where the reflective listening would be, you're not thinking about anything but what the client's saying, and then you repeat back to them what they just said to make sure that you understand it and they know that you were listening to them. So there you'd say something like, so it sounds like you're kind of, when you think about legacy, you'd like to leave some to charity. If you left some to the kids, that'd be okay, but that's not your biggest concern because they're both doing well. So your biggest concern is not spending your money and enjoying your retirement, but at the same time, you don't want to run out of money. So we need to probably look at like a guardrail approach. Is that something you've heard of? And that can direct them into a conversation that you heard everything they said, they know that you heard that, and now you're directing it into something that's going to be helpful to them, where if you just right away you cut that off and, I got a good idea, they're going to think I'm smart if I bring this up. That completely derails the whole, and I'm guilty of doing that myself. Again, something you can always improve and get better on.
Yeah, it's hard to do because you're trained to be an expert in what solution you're providing for them. It's easy to glaze over the root emotional cause for them being there. So great point. I think that's really helpful and something I honestly think a lot of other advisors are overlooking, and showing that you're a good listener and that you're willing to work with them one-on-one at the end of the day is probably what sells a client on working with an advisor. I'm curious, would you agree with that or say that? I mean, there's obviously other factors, but at its root, that's what I personally believe would be the biggest selling factor.
Yeah, I think, I don't think anyone's going to work with you if they don't like you and if they don't think you're listening to them. That completely wipes you off the table. But there's a lot of advisors that are good, that are, taking a personalized approach. So what has you stand out in comparison to someone else who's probably doing a lot of the similar things is, I would say, just, being authentic with it. You can't really fake that. Like when I'm sitting in front of people and they're telling me their story, I genuinely have kind of a already built-in empathy for them, to the point of where I've told people, I don't think I'm the right advisor for you, or you might not think I'm the right advisor, but I already care about you and I want what's best for you. So let me help you try to find, let's stay in touch. Let me help you try to find the right situation. You can't really fake that. Like if you either care, you either have that where you really care about someone or you don't. And so that's something that I think people can feel, and that's, I don't know how to, I don't know if you could necessarily teach that if it wasn't there.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. Well, I can already tell just how you engage and talk about your clients and your approach, that you seek to listen and understand what your clients are going through to get to that core. So I think your clients for sure and prospects will feel that and do feel that same thing.
I appreciate it.
Are there any things that you see other advisors consistently overlooking when it comes to serving their clients or growing their firms that you've tried to counteract?
Yeah, one thing, I guess I don't know if this is overlooking, because I don't know, I guess, if the landscape is changing a little bit, but one thing that I've found that I was missing in the, I would say, more conventional in-person approach. So, I do meet with people in person if it works out location-wise, but basically 100% virtual. And I use the power of Loom and video to educate clients in ways that I could never educate them in an in-person setting. And that's, I don't know if that is being adapted as well, but once that was introduced to me, it made my ability to educate clients so much easier, and so much easier on them. You think, for going back to the tax bill that just passed, I was able to send all of them a 10-minute video. I know you've heard there's some changes in the tax law. We want to review your tax plan. Here's things that have changed or they haven't changed because we were anticipating this, whatever the case may be. I get an email back that says, "This is great information, thank you." In the past, if you're just very focused on in-person meetings, that would be these people interrupting their day, coming into the office with you. I do think there's some value in sitting around talking non-finance stuff and hanging out, and we get that in our semi-annual review meetings that aren't just on one specific topic. But if this person is just very concerned about one thing, that's a whole bunch of time out of their day. They get in front of you, you try to present something to them. They're maybe taking in some of it. They're shooting off questions to you that you may or may not have the answer to right away. And they probably leave just as confused as when they come in, where you can use that video and the education and give them 10 minutes of, this is exactly how your plan is. This is exactly why we're making this adjustment or we're not making any adjustments. And they can watch that video as many times as they want. Sometimes I talk fast, so they'll slow it down a little bit, but they can fully understand that and consume it, and just the educational value of that. Again, I don't know if that's something that has been more adapted, but once I was able to adapt that has allowed me to bring even more value to the client of educating them and empowering them in that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Loom is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful tools ever, especially to stay personalized with people, have a meeting that they can essentially attend at their own time and still see your face. Like, it accomplishes everything that an email can do, but also adds your face to it. So, and it probably saves you a ton of back and forth over email when you have complaints from multiple clients saying, "What's going on right now with these tax bill changes? What's going to happen to me?" Do you ever just send out a mass Loom video to say, here's kind of the update on what's going on?
I haven't. It's always been, personalized, but yeah, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea under certain circumstances to kind of send out an email of, I don't know. But yeah, it's always been a personalized approach on my end.
That's great. Well, I know for prospecting too, great tool as well, just to reach out to people who've never heard of you and want to understand a little bit more and see your face and not just have a cold email. People are going to click on a video, be like, oh, and it adds, I feel, to your brand of, I'm personalized, and our first engagement is personalized.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of my prospecting process is if I have someone that, I've sat in front of, done a discovery call, it sounds like we might be the right fit. Before I even let them tell me if they wanted me to be their advisor or not, I gather some information with them and I give them a really broad overview of kind of all the ideas that I think we could implement in their plan. Obviously, we're not working, so I'm not telling them to do this or that. It's just a very broad interview or overview of, this is where I can help you with Social Security planning. This is where I could help you with tax planning. This is where there could be some investment improvements. Again, keep it general and broad, but I send that out, and then I say, let's have a conversation, and if you want to work with me, now you know everything that you're getting. And that again just builds a lot of that trust from the beginning.
Tons of that. And I would argue, in addition to the listening, it's trust is more important. If you can convey the trust, build that with them, like, of course they're going to work with you. Mm-hmm. Such a huge part of your job. I'm curious about the potential growth of your business. What do you see with where you're trying to take Jonasson Retirement Solutions over the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, so right now I'm a one-man crew. I do have a great support system with Cressonia Wealth Advisors. That's the RIA that I do business through. And so I'm not just a one-man crew. I have a ton of resources and great people there that I'm working with. But I'm looking to find those ideal clients that I can service all the way through, work with all the way through, build their retirement, build those relationships. 12 to 24 months from now, I'm hopefully scaling to the point where I can bring on a client service specialist that's going to, if I am out on vacation, they're able to step in and they're able to maybe handle some requests that come in, like, some of the more simple requests that don't involve like a big strategic conversation. So I think as I grow, that would kind of be the next step, is bring in someone really good on that end, just so I can make sure that service end doesn't fade off because I'm, overbooked or have too much going on myself. So hopefully that's happening in the next 12 to 24 months.
That's exciting. Yeah, and using the same marketing plays that you've been using here. Before launching your own firm, you were part of a team that generated massive growth using content marketing. What did you learn from that experience, and how are you applying that to your growth over these next few months?
Yeah, I guess what I've learned from that is a lot of the concepts of, the Loom video and the power that you can use from that came with, that we were a virtual company. All of the marketing was virtual. There was no in-person client events or anything like that. And people came in through the door, I guess not through the door, but came into meetings already knowing who we were, already knowing what we stood for, already knowing what our goals were. And that built way more trusting relationships than, say, a cold outreach would, or even an in-person event where maybe the person was dragged there because you're giving out a free dinner or whatever the case may be. These are people that they couldn't wait to talk to us because they've seen our content on YouTube, they watched it sometimes religiously. They'll tell us, like, I've watched you for 2 years. I couldn't wait to, finally have a meeting with you. And so just building those kind of I guess, familiarity effect before you even have that first conversation with the person, that's where I think the power of digital marketing is. And that's where, again, kind of going to what I said on the power of working virtually. I've actually at first would have thought that it was a disadvantage, but now I'm finding a lot of advantages. And I think that holds true in the marketing front as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be terrible if it was flipped the other way. You're a celebrity and you're walking around and people feel like they know who you are. You're like, that's got to be the worst feeling in the world for them. But in the world of digital marketing like this, you want people to be engaging with you, feeling like they've already met you. And so I think that's a great way. That's the side of the coin that you want to be on, where your clients already know your content. They trust you, and that's going to be a way better first call.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great points there. Any content strategies or marketing plays that you have seen that didn't go as planned that you would recommend other advisors to steer away from?
Yeah, so this is a little bit different because this was a while ago. We were recruiting for more advisors to come onto the firm. So it wasn't trying to get clients, but we did a webinar, and I was kind of chosen as the person that was going to present the webinar, but I had to do it in somebody else's words. So they basically wanted me to run the webinar and then answer questions at the end. But I had a whole script that was not my words, not how I would have worded things, and probably some things I would have not disagreed with, but would have said in a different way. And that did not work out. And that I was incapable of like being someone else. So I guess the lesson there was, if you're doing anything that isn't authentically you, and if you're doing it just for marketing, it's never going to work. it's too easy to sniff out, and it's just awkward too.
I agree. So would you say go off script as much as possible? Don't just be following something verbatim?
Yeah, well, that was kind of a weird scenario where, again, I was kind of chosen just to be the face of and present the
Yeah.
words. It wasn't my words behind it. But yeah, I guess just don't do anything that you would, don't be a part of anything or say anything or do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. If someone else is pushing you to do that and you're not being authentic, it's going to come through, and it's certainly not going to work in marketing.
So true, especially in this space. I've seen so many financial advisor videos where you can just see them like scanning the screen and reading a script. And yeah, you don't have to sniff that out. You just see it. It's
Yeah.
just really, really unnatural. Curious about your growth and circling back to there. So when growth stalls, what do you feel like is usually the biggest roadblock for you as an advisor in scaling?
Yeah, again, a little too early to say for, Jonasson Retirement Solutions. We're at
Yeah.
kind of infancy, so I think this is a really important question though, because I've seen places where growth was stalled and it wasn't because the marketing wasn't there. The biggest thing is that I've seen is that system and processes. And I know that sounds kind of nerdy and boring, but if you're the leader of the company, you're the head person, and you don't think that's important and you just kind of delegate it and you figure it out and you don't make sure that it's efficient, you can, even if it's not the personnel or the employee's fault, to me that comes from the top. And having processes and systems in place that make sure that if we grow twice as fast as we've ever grown before this month, we're going to be able to give the exact same service to the clients, the exact same onboarding process, and the employees aren't going to be ripping their hair out at the end of the day because they're overwhelmed. So having those in place, again, know it sounds nerdy, but I've seen that when companies are really capable of growing, that's where they're kind of get bottlenecked.
100%. It's the systems, the processes, keeping everything going. It's the hard part is you're an entrepreneur in a way. You got to also run a business, keep clients satisfied. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's one shift or opportunity that you see for advisors that most people might be underestimating, and how are you preparing for it?
Well, I guess I hate to go back to the Loom virtual, like using videos. I guess we kind of already covered that, but that is something I think using using videos to answer questions and educate as opposed to the in-person. I think it's shifting in that way. A better answer might be, a more interesting answer is, or a more interesting topic is AI going to take away a financial advisor? I was in a group with other financial advisors. It was a group just to kind of talk about, how things are going. And one of the questions was, is financial advising getting commoditized? Like, could you basically plug or play any financial advisor and the outcome is no different? And as more education happens, as there's, maybe AI makes it easier to kind of systemize some of the planning process or get answers to faster for the advisor to give on to the client. Maybe that's a shift that's coming, but I again go back to that personalized approach. I don't think AI is ever going to fully I've asked AI questions and I've known that they're wrong because it's not perfect now. But maybe there is going to be like a kind of an AI virtual advisor at some point that can help out a little bit in educating people. I think that could potentially be a shift, but I don't think that's ever gonna, that AI person, whether they say they do or not, or AI, not person, I guess, whatever they say to you, they don't fully understand you. They don't understand, your fears, and they're not going to be able to help you in those situations. So I don't think that's ever going to fully go away, but maybe some of the education front, if anything, would be enhanced by that.
Yeah. It's going to be a big shift. I think everyone's a little bit more fearful about it than anything, and I agree with your angle on it. If anything, I believe it's going to enhance the overall services that the advisors are able to provide. I'm pretty deep into AI all the time. We're constantly building AIs and looking at new solutions for our advisor clients, and I feel that in so many different industries, because we are such human connected humans and individuals, will always have that element. And there's always going to be that piece of mistrust that you want a human eye to engage with. So I really don't think that it's going to go away, the role in industry that you're in. If anything, I just believe it'll be enhanced.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's exciting though. It's really exciting to see all the tech changing and see how it helps, if anything, just improve the overall client experience. Well, Conor, thank you for taking the time to be here and answering some of these questions. It has been, I know, very valuable to our listeners and to potential people who are looking for retirement solutions, and they definitely have a trusted hand in you. So where could listeners learn more about you and your services?
Yeah, so the number one place, just on LinkedIn, Conor Jonasson. We also have a page, Jonasson Retirement Solutions, if you want to reach out to me on there. And then Chrysonia, which I talked about, they have a website, chrysoniawealth.com. But yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Austin.
Yeah, of course. And I hope our listeners will go out and connect with you and contact you there through your website and LinkedIn. Thank you again for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the great things that you do, Conor.
Good. Have a good one.
You too. Bye for now.